Yeah.
And I remember
Yeah.
telling my mom, I said, well, he said he always wanted to get married on his birthday. So she said, January is so cold. So she said, okay, but you had won my mother over, so she was agreeing whatever you said. It was a beautiful day.
I remember driving up on the wedding day. I didn't even come down the day before, which probably should have been because you want to be safe in the winter. But it was a gorgeous, something like, like in Michigan, a 65-degree day
Right.
is a day that you take. I just got this job back. I just come back in January. In January I had the job back. I meet you in July. And I asked you to marry me in November.
And we were just trying to, so we weren't really in saving mode to prepare for a marriage, not at all.
That's right.
And so I really had not had time to really even make a savings. So, but it's just so providential rather, how God stepped in and took it. Money was never been an issue.
Fascinates me to the day that we never had an argument over money and we never had enough.
That's right.
We had holy contentment.
That's right.
Oh,
I
that's
remember
wow.
we were so mindful of my mother. Did we leave her my car? I know we didn't bring my car with us.
You did. You gave that. Yeah, your car was a white car. Remember? I remember it. And I think you did leave it with her.
Yeah, so I had to pay it off.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, but the Lord always took care of us. And from there, Bishop, we moved to, I moved, you're already living there. I moved to Lansing, Michigan, and we stayed on Michigan State campus,
Falcon
Staff Housing.
Yeah.
We had a one-bedroom apartment.
1640 H.
And then 1639I.
Yep, those are the addresses, yep.
Had a one-bedroom apartment. And Bishop, godliness and contentment is certainly great gain.
Mm-hmm.
Because we went there, and I remember seeing the place from the campus, and I was just thrilled that we had a place of our own to stay. You said you were concerned if I would liked it. I couldn't wait to fix the apartment up and make it.
I honestly can remember because we got in a U-Haul trailer, and that we put all the gifts in that U-Haul trailer coming from Gary. And I remember coming up, and I walked you up there, and I was really afraid because it's Falcon and Staff Housing, which means it's not anything. It's just an apartment, right? It's nothing, right? And the mascot for MSU was Spartans, and it was very Spartan. Yes, and so I can remember we got to the door, and I remember. Just by tradition, I picked you up and carried you over the threshold.
That's correct.
Set you down, and you looked around at it, and I remember to the day. On the date of this recording, we are almost a month away from our 44th wedding anniversary, right? Mm-hmm. And I remember the look on your face like I'm looking at you right now. You looked around and you smiled. It was nothing to be impressed with. It was just, you know what it was? It was our beginning.
Yes, it was.
It was our beginning. It was our own apartment. It was our beginning. And I remember I walked you, picked you up and carried you over the threshold. I set you down, and I remember this can I say it this way? This is not proper English, but I remember it to the right now. You looked like this. You looked left and right, and you didn't have a great big smile, but you had a very pleasing smile on your face, and you turned that little one-bedroom apartment into a home. You got the curtains, you did every little thing you wanted to do to it, and so on and so forth. It was our beginning.
Amen. Well, Bishop, that'll bring us up to how we end up with increase in the home. We can start and tell them how we increase with children, or how do we end up communicating with me coming from Gary to your church, a brand new church, and how I was received and how things worked out at that point.
That's called transition, isn't it?
Transition, that's good.
How the transition happened. That's true, because you have to, oh yes, that's going to be a whole nother story, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Because I remember your grandfather's face when we were packing up the U-Haul getting ready to leave Gary. We were just freshly married on the same day, and he was sitting there looking heartbroken.
That was one of the most difficult things I ever had to do. My grandfather loved me. He loved all his grandchildren, but I was only one of the only grandchildren that he had that would stay with him in the ministry at church.
Yeah.
The hardest thing I had to do, and our home in Gary, Indiana was not very large. Mm-hmm. So my grandfather, when we got ready to leave, we came back home to pick up the things that we had left in my mother's home to take for me to move down to Michigan.
Right.
And my grandfather, we called him Big Daddy.
Yeah.
Big Daddy sat at the door so that we could not get out the door unless we passed by him.
I can see him right now. I can see him right now.
He sat at the door
yes, he did.
so we could not pass by. I did not want to pass by him. It was the hardest thing to look at him. And I remember he had his head down, and it was just breaking my heart. Yeah. So I didn't know how to walk past him, and I remember he said, I said, Big Daddy, we're going to be back. Mm-hmm. He said, son, you going to bring her back to see me?
I remember those exact words.
And you said, yo, Big Daddy, I'll bring her back much as you want.
Yes.
He said, yeah, I'm going to miss her so. Yeah. He would hold his head down. I'm like, oh, God, this is so hard to do.
I remember.
So I remember hugging him and giving him a kiss and have to walk past him. I felt like I was betraying him. But we got through that moment. It was hard. And it was just to have my grandfather. He was so moved by that, but he still loved you so much, and so I don't think he could have entrusted me to anybody else.
Well, your dad was deceased.
That's right.
And he was the one that I asked for your hand in marriage.
Yes, you did.
It was I was down, and it was a Sunday I wanted to propose, of course. And, I proposed that Saturday, and that Sunday when I went to church, I went through the ceremony of going into his office and asking Big Daddy for your hand in marriage. Mm-hmm. And he looked at me, and he knew at that time, I was a young minister in training. I've just been called. I got called to the ministry the week after I met you, of course. And but he and I just had chemistry.
Yes, you did.
From the very beginning. And so I told him, I went back to his office after that morning service. I said, right. Big Daddy, I said, I would like to marry your granddaughter, and I want your permission to do so, and I want your blessings. And so he said, okay, and so on and so forth. But what did he tell you, though?
It is so funny, Bishop. Yeah. This was you were at service that morning. Of course, you left after service because you had to drive all the way back.
Right.
But that evening when I went to service, so it had to be a Sunday, he called me to the back room, and I always share with people, it is Big Daddy that started the Me Too movement some 44 years ago. And I say that because when he called me into the back room, we're in service, and that was not like him. He was not out during the, praise and worship service. So he called me back, and I went back to the room. Mm. He said, daughter, have a seat. I said, yes, sir. He said, the young fellow that's been coming up here, he said, he asked me something. He said, did he ask you? I said, yes, sir. He said, so he asked you? He said, because he asked me about you. I said, yes, sir, he asked me. I knew what he was talking about. Mm-hmm. He said, well, baby, what did you tell him? I said, well, Big Daddy, I told him yes. He said, you told him yes? He said, baby, you told him yes? I said, yes, sir. He said, me too. Me too. He said, he's such a nice fella. He said, me too. Me too. Mm-hmm. He said, not just such a nice fella. He said, and daughter, I don't mind him having you, but he said, I'll find him a job.
So he wanted to give me a job in the mill, is that right?
He said, I'll find him a job. He said,
uh-huh.
I can find him a job. He said, I just don't want him to take you. He said, but you told him yes. I said, yes, sir. He said, me too, me too. So he said, now, I've been in the mill I can get him a good job in the mill. I said, Big Daddy, he doesn't do that kind of work. I said, Big Daddy, he works at Michigan State. He's into computers. Mm-hmm. He said, yeah, I understand. He said, baby, me too, me too. I told him so I laughed.
He started the Me Too movement, right?
So he started the Me Too movement 43 years ago. That came from my
grandfather.
So from that, but he was 100% for me being happy.
Yeah.
And we went back to see him often.
Yeah, we did.
But maybe this is a good place to cut, Bishop, and we can bring them back next Amen session as to where our lives went from that point.
The transition.
Transitional time.
Being married is a transition.
Yes, it is.
You coming from Gary to Lansing to live is a transition.
Bishop, and it may seem so smooth what people think, but just remembering.
Yes.
I remember the very first time you and I went shopping. Not grocery shopping.
Oh, well, yeah, we got to say that for next time. Yeah, we got to say it for next time.
We got to tell you about the first time
I remember that
receiving a no from a person I've only known 6 months.
Don't go into it.
And to give me a no?
No, that's not. So.
Well, you got to find out what the no was that he gave me.
Okay, good enough.
All right, we'll cut right there, but you got to stay tuned to hear that, as they say, Bishop, the juicy part of it.
The juicy part of it. Very good.